Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Speak Your Own Book, the podcast. I'm your host, Krys Copeland, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. In this episode, we're going to do a deep dive into a topic that's fundamental to every aspiring author's journey. We're going to cover lesson 4 of our book, Your First Chapter. And whether you're crafting fiction, nonfiction, poetry, or your first chapter, or any other type of writing, your first chapter sets the stage for your entire book. This is where you get a chance to captivate your readers and draw them into your world. However, the first chapter does not always have to be the first chapter of the book. You can actually start writing from any point in your book. If you want to start with chapter 12, start with chapter 12. If you have that very clear in your mind and you want to get it out, do it. The order that you go in is really up to you and your um, the amount of information that you have gathered for that chapter, what you're ready for, what you're in the mood to write. All of that can play a part in it. So today we'll explore the art of brainstorming for a specific chapter and how that's different from brainstorming for your whole book. And how to transform those creative sparks into a comprehensive mind map for your chapter. So you'll have a mind map for your overall book, but then you'll also be able to do the same thing by mind mapping your chapter in the same manner. We'll then guide you through the process of organizing your ideas into an outline for your first chapter. We'll do this through the book outline because there is a section there where you get to outline each of the separate chapters. Um, and whether you're, regardless of what you're writing, you can use that same book outline to do it. However, we do have a special one that we recommend for fiction and one for nonfiction, and you can find the links to those in the book. Again, that book is available at speakyourownbook.com, or you can just join Witch School and take the course through Witch School as well. All the material is available for through their course as well. So both options are available, and we're working on one for Psychic Academy at this time. So if you're ready to embark on your creative journey today, grab your notepads and let's get started. Whether you're a seasoned writer or you're just starting out, there's something here for everybody to learn. Before we dive in, I do want to remind you again, you can access that full course on witchschool.com and purchase the textbook from speakyourownbook.com to follow along with us. Plus, you can catch the live stream of this episode right now, but you can also watch the restream of it on Pagan World TV and Magic TV via YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So let's begin our exploration of your first chapter. I'm going to share my screen here with you. All right. You'll notice that we do have some all bats for this chapter. By the end of this lesson, you will know how to brainstorm and create a mind map centered around one chapter of your book. And you can organize the mind map into an outline for that chapter. So you'll learn some new vocabulary today. Some of this we've already introduced, like author's purpose from last time. And I do want to mention that the reason that I was not here last week, I do apologize for needing to be out a week, but I was quite sick several days last week and needed to take some time off to recuperate from that. The other words that we'll learn today, along with the author's purpose, are a callback, a hook, a mind map, which we've discussed last week, and an outline, which we've discussed last week. We've also talked about prerequisite skills before. If you have a prerequisite for college, it means you had to take some other class before you started this class. It's the same with prerequisite skills for writing a book. You have to have certain skills already in place before you learn the new skill that we're teaching. And then you'll also learn the term reader will be able to. So this is a change from our all-bat. Author will be able to. You're the author. What will your reader be able to do by the time they finish reading this chapter of your book? And then we'll also talk about a segue. So the two graphic organizers we're using today are the Mind Map graphic organizer, but you can also use mindmup.com, just like we talked about last time. And you're going to use the book outline graphic organizer, which again is also A copy is found in the book, as well as a link to the digital version of that. Um, and of course, we have this little intro here that it's not always your first chapter. You don't have to start with lesson 1 or chapter 1 of your book. You can start with chapter 4 or chapter 8, whichever you want to do. But you're going to be examining the chapter that you're going to be writing first today. So pick out one from your outline from last week and focus in, zoom in on this one. Just like we created a constellation for your book last time in our meditation, you're going to zoom in on one star from that meditation. And you're going to do this kind of universe to atom type of zoom in on it, from the broader spectrum to the smaller spectrum of your topic. We're going to skip the meditation until the end, but we will do that at the end of our time today. When you're mind mapping your first chapter, just think of it as a shorter book within your book. Instead of chapters, you'll have section headings, and you'll have different things that you want to talk about throughout the chapter. Certain key takeaways that you want your reader to be left with at the end. You also want to define the goals for that book, for that chapter of the book. What is your reader going to be learning? What will they have learned by the end of that chapter? So you'll again use the mind graphing organizer to create the mind map of your first topic. We walk you through this in the book pretty step by step throughout, but I will try to just make it a brief overview today. You can take a look at the book or at the course on witchschool.com for more information. But what you'll first start with is the hook, and you'll see that word hook as one of the things that you'll have to come up with. I make note of a key story in the Speak Your Own Book textbook for the course of the book outline. I make note of the hook that I wanted to use for this chapter is a story about how to make a peanut butter sandwich as the hook for how to explain a hook. And I also give some examples about how to segue into the next chapter. So I started it with this idea of using Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy from the star system. Instead, you're going to make your own. In this one, you're going to make your own entry about the system you visit in your constellation. That will make more sense once you finish the the meditation. I've been working all day, so PowerPoint is on the brain. The meditation at the end involves something similar to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, so I think you'll really enjoy that. That was my segue into this chapter, and then my hook for this chapter was retelling the story about how a teacher taught me as a child how to be a good writer of how-to stories. How-to is a topic of nonfiction that we have a lot, especially young students, write, because it is one of the simpler ones to start with. We start with personal narrative, and then usually the nonfiction how-to is the second thing we teach them how to do. So if you're teaching someone else how to do something, you're going to need to know how to do it with a lot of detail and a lot of nuance and a lot of important information that you might not think is important, but that your reader will need to complete whatever task or goal that you're giving them by reading your book. In the example that I give, I retell this in a quite it's a very obvious way of showing why we need, maybe even a little bit silly way of why we need to put in clear instructions when we're writing how-to type books. We want to make sure that our readers are doing everything they're supposed to be doing and not skipping steps in between. So a very common thing to start with for how-to books is teaching children how to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Write a story telling me how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or a recipe or something like that. And the teacher demonstrated the necessity for this by following our specific directions, our verbal directions, our spoken directions, for how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And she followed us quite word for word, to a hilarious interpretation from, not opening the bread bag at first or using her hand to put the peanut butter on the bread. Instead of, so the student saying, we'll pick up the knife and, untie the bread, and all of those steps in between. So we had to really slow down and think about every step of that. And that's something, that lesson that she taught us about slowing down and thinking of every step, thinking through every step, is something that you also need to do as a speak writer. Just like we were speak writing to her, our instructions, you will be speak writing in a Zoom call or something like that, your instructions to your readers, which will then be transcribed. So you want to make sure you're giving very clear instructions. Otherwise, they might be putting peanut butter on a piece of bread with their hand or something. But make sure your readers know that the tools that they need to have, the exact steps that they need to follow with those tools, and the correct order for it. So, you want to be orderly. First open the jar, then do this. Be specific. Use a butter knife, not a steak knife. And be exact. In the center, not the crust. When you're giving those directions, whether it's, making a peanut butter jelly sandwich, or it's giving a tarot reading, or planting an herb garden, or going through the grieving process after death or divorce, all of those have the same steps to follow and the same needs in order to communicate those steps to your reader. So that was something I wanted to make a good point about at the beginning of this, because you do have to be quite specific. If you do that step of putting yourself in that mindset of, I'm giving the exact instructions they need in the order they need it, specifically how they need to do it, you're going to be a lot more clear in your communication to your reader. Now, I've talked in here as well about how to use the chapter outline graphic organizer, and I'm actually just going to pull that up as well so you can see the example that I'm talking about here. Let's see if I can find that very quickly here. I think I shortened it. That's why I can't find it. That's why. Yeah, textbook and course outline. So I'm going to share this tab now, and I'll just scroll down so you can see what I mean by the chapter, the individual chapters here. So we're going to just take a look at the one for number 4, the one that we're on. And you'll note here that I had the meditation as the hook, and the callback to the stories that I wanted to tell were the how to make a peanut butter sandwich story. I wanted to have that callback from zooming from your constellation and seeing here all the way into your constellation and back. And I wanted to use the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy entry as a segue to the next chapter. So as you're making your own information in the book outline, you'll want to start with the map itself first. Just map it out and see how that looks. We'll go back over here. And then after you map it, you'll start organizing it in the outline itself. Also I touch a bit on what stories you should choose. That's that section right back over here, the stories that you want to have in your book. In the previous chapter, I had the Johnny Cash story, so I had that one in there as an example of the theme for your life. And then, I think I've lost my share. Let me share my screen again. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. So yes, I have the stories here. You'll want to think about what kind of stories you want to use to illustrate points from yours. For the example of Tarot Merlot, we listed a story about her first tarot deck, as well as the story demonstrating what could happen if negative energy residue is left in a tarot deck. So those were stories that we wanted to put in. Now, we've already discussed that story that we pulled for this textbook's lesson 4, which is that peanut butter sandwich story. So when you're filling in your own outline, make sure you list what stories you could tell about your own experience or your own life that could demonstrate, or maybe it's a friend's or your mentor's life, but an example that demonstrates what you're talking about in that topic. And then the other thing, you'll notice that throughout the book we have these SYOB pro tips. And this one here is on trigger warning. So it's very important if you do have a book that touches on sensitive topics. Some of those people that are reading that may not be expecting that this is a topic that comes up in your book. Now, it may be quite obvious, like if your book is about grieving and it says how to deal with grief on the cover, yeah, that one's pretty obvious that there's going to be death involved in that. But if it's less obvious, if maybe you're talking about a sensitive subject suddenly in a tarot book where you may normally not be doing that, it's a good idea to put a trigger warning before that section of the story starts, just for people who may be going through a similar experience right now, or maybe they haven't dealt with unresolved trauma. Maybe they still have shadow work that they need to do to deal with unresolved trauma from a myriad of different potential traumatic experiences. But we don't know in the end what other people are going through, so it's best just to be nice and put that trigger warning there. It's not about being, sensitive crybabies or millennials or anything like this. It's just that people go through a lot every day. And if they're dealing with something that's traumatic right now, or that's traumatic in their minds, and all of a sudden that comes up on the page for them, it could trigger that image from the past trauma in their brains, and they weren't expecting it in that moment. They weren't prepared to deal with it. It's not that they couldn't deal with it, it's just they didn't have preparation. So if you're about to talk about a subject that is that can be triggering for some people, or that are traumatized by those events, then put the trigger warning in there. It's just super important to do that. And that's whether you're writing a book or you're writing something on Facebook, but just try to be kind with that, because you never know what people are going through in that moment. Now, you also want to define your key takeaways. Let me switch back over. Oh, no, we're still on here, so I can show this to you. Your key reader takeaways need to be those things that you want your reader to understand by the time they finish that chapter. What should they leave that chapter knowing? What's the most important message from it? For the chapter 4 outline here, we put that the key takeaway was that a chapter outline is very similar to a book outline, but just at a deeper granular level. So, and then you wash, rinse, and repeat. You just do that for every chapter until you have a book. And now we'll jump over to the difference between a callback and a segue. So a callback is a type of hook that refers to the original chapter hook. So we can call back to that earlier one. A segue is a way to hint at what's coming ahead. So we have callbacks that go towards the past, and we have segues that go towards the future. Now, your next callback may actually be to that segue from the previous one, but that's how callbacks and segues work. You'll call back to the previous thing, and you'll foreshadow the coming thing with a segue. When you finish that outline, one of the things you want to do is share it with your friends and family. Share it with your followers on social media, because one, it helps just build your brand awareness, your personal brand awareness. But two, it also gives you some valuable insights from likely the people who are going to be reading your book and using your book when you finish with it. So try to get the people that you have available to you, whether that's close to you, whether it's online friends, whether it's at the Speak Your Own Book Facebook group. Ask for feedback from others so that you can make sure that you're being really clear in what you want to convey to them, and all the steps are included and nothing is confusing. We can take a look over here at the supporting content. This is what I mean by the steps. So I want them to be able to do all of these things. And this is typically the order that it's going to be in the book. So I'll teach them how to do each of these steps in the book as I'm writing it or as I'm speaking it, and then transcribing it later. But I will need to have that information here and readily available so that I can talk about it. Let's move over. I'm going to share again my screen here with the textbook. And we'll talk about the zooming in with hitchhikers. So I'm actually use the callbacks and segues for the lesson to talk about the concepts of callbacks and segues. So it's a bit of an awkward feeling as I'm writing it, but it seems to flow pretty well when you're reading the book. That, this hook that I'm talking about, or the segue that I'm talking about, or this callback that I'm talking about is actually an example of the concepts that I'm talking about. So we'll move on now to, let's see here. I'm going to show you this tab here. And yeah, so you see how I have here the callback at the end is the zoom to the atomic level. So we're going to be zooming in on a chapter to that, from the universal level to the atomic level. And then I'm going to segue using that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy entry. Now that Hitchhiker's Guide will make much more sense after we do our meditation for today, everyone. So I'm going to scroll back up here. And I'll just stop sharing and put on some background music so we can begin our meditation for the day. And it's taking just a moment for the music to pop up. Hopefully it will start. But we will go ahead and start the meditation as well. So wherever you're at, sit, stand, or lie down, whichever is most comfortable, and close your eyes. Breathe deeply in and out. In and out. In and out. Now continue breathing slowly in and slowly out as you meditate. Release all tension in your body. Now picture yourself standing on top of the same very high mountain in the middle of a starlit night, just as you did in your previous meditation with us. Find your constellation in the sky and redraw its borders, connecting the dots of starlight as you go. Focus on one point of light in your constellation. Feel yourself being drawn to it, as if you are meant to reach out and touch it. In fact, you do reach out to touch it, but the star is far, far out of your reach. You stretch, standing on your toes to reach it, and suddenly you feel yourself lift off the mountain peak and float towards the star. You build speed as you rise into the air, and the curvature of the surface of the earth begins to reveal itself to you. You rise above the clouds and into the outer heavens of our planet. Between puffy clouds, you can see patches of green and blue and tan all around this marble floating in the middle of the Milky Way. You turn your attention back to your star as you reach the edges of space. The darkness of the void of space is silent and empty, but you do see the bright blazing sun and the cold white moon floating in the vast inky ocean of our solar system. You see the rest of the planets, as well as Pluto, asteroids, moons, and other planetoids spinning around the sun, some so fast they blur, some at a slow and plodding pace. But your star is not in our system, of course, and you point yourself towards it. It could be on the other side of the Milky Way or in a completely different galaxy altogether. Wherever your star is, imagine yourself no longer floating towards it, but flying at faster than light speed. Other objects, the planets in our sun, begin to fade quickly in the distance as you hurtle through space towards your star. You may pass other objects in the universe, other galaxies or nebulas or black holes. Keep flying straight for your star. Your star begins to increase in size, becoming larger and larger. You reach the outer edges of the system of objects revolving around your star. What kind of star is it? Is it a brown dwarf star, a red giant, or yellow sun, similar to our own? Take note of the number of planetary objects orbiting this star. Are there Earth-like planets with perhaps alien life? Are there gaseous giants like Jupiter? Are there asteroids and comets? Or is it a barren and empty spacescape? Try to record to memory as many details about your star and its system as you can. Feel free to float down to any of the objects in the solar system and explore further, perhaps even meeting with living beings on the surface and exploring their world and getting to know their people. When you have finished exploring your solar system, turn away and zoom out of it, returning rapidly to the Milky Way and our little corner of it in the solar system of our bright yellow, life-giving sun. When you are ready, breathe deeply a few more times as you come back to reality, back into your body, still picturing your star system in your mind. When you're ready, open your eyes, ground and release in whatever manner you wish. If you wish, record the details of your solar system, the personal symbol of power for a single chapter in your book, in your journal or book of shadows. And that recording is actually what's going to transition us into our next topic, which will be how to speak the first chapter of your book. And in order to do that, you'll be making your own Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy style entry of your new star system that you discovered in the next chapter that we dive into next week. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Good morning to everyone in the chat. Good morning to Ed and Debbie. Thank you so much for joining in today. And if you have any questions about your own books or your own writing that you're doing right now, please feel free to jump onto Facebook and find us at speakyourownbook.com. We have both a public page as well as a public group. You're more than welcome to join that and receive advice on how to finish publishing your book, how to start publishing your book, how to start writing your book or speak writing your book. We're here to help with whatever you need. So just drop us a line and let us know what you're doing. Thank you so much, everybody, today for joining in. And I look forward to talking with you next week on Lesson 5 when we speak your first chapter.